first thing is to try to determine, are you exposed to any metals? And that would be really going through your house and looking at all the cosmetics. That means, makeup, especially deodorant. There can be metals in food. You can find a lot of that on EWG's website. You can find some on Natural News, who's been testing water all over the country, Mike Adams. Most people just test for mercury, lead, and cadmium. Really, if you're eating organic, because the soil still is not 100%, because you still have air that travels all over, and the air travels over organic farms. It rains, the rain comes down. So, even organic food might still have traces of some heavy metals in there. But what I like to use is what I've found, the substances that I've found have been the most effective. First, cleansing the gut. Second, doing 2 or 3 liver cleanses, because the liver is what really helps process and cleanse and detoxify the chemicals and the toxic metals. And so even if you're going through and you're trying to eliminate all these and you're using IVs or you're using chelation, that can sometimes be hard on the kidneys. But you always want to make sure your liver is clean. And then some of the substances that I like to use are chlorella, activated charcoal. Iodine, believe it or not, is one of my favorite, because not only does iodine remove the fluoride, chlorine, bromine, the toxic halogens, but it also helps remove lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, and most of the heavy metals. It's just that you need to be taking higher levels of iodine, and some people don't feel comfortable at those different types of levels. I personally take 20,000 micrograms of iodine, a few times a week. So iodine, cilantro. Cilantro's been known for a long time to help remove and chelate out heavy metals. The healing clays like bentonite clay, there's glacier clays, there's, clays and zeolites, for example. I've always been a fan of zeolites. Clays and zeolites will absorb a lot of the chemicals and the toxic metals. There's been a lot of controversy lately, well, not lately, going back a year or so, about zeolites. And all I'm going to say is I've challenged these individuals, because we've done our own studies on, and I actually use zeolites. And the conflicting information that's on the web will say zeolites are bad for you because zeolites are very high in metals. And that could be true, because zeolites attract metals. But our research shows that zeolites don't release those metals. So these individuals that are testing zeolites out there and writing articles about how bad they are, they tested the zeolites. But they didn't test to see if those metals would actually disattach from the zeolites and actually go into the body. Our test results actually proved the opposite. Those metals that are in the zeolites are in the shell of the zeolites. They're not going to be released. As a matter of fact, the zeolites will pick up more metals, and they will be eliminated without depositing any additional metals in the system. And I had conversations with those individuals that were posting that stuff, and it's still a controversial issue. But I can say, what I believe in and what I think is the right is that, and if you can do your own research and you look at the structure of a zeolite molecule, it's attached. Even in the presence of acid, it's not going to disattach from the zeolite. The zeolite is actually going to take more of any type of chemicals or toxic metals and attach them, and then you'll be able to eliminate those effectively. Shilajit, which is actually a combination in the Himalayas, in the Himalayan mountains, they go harvest this, and the Shilajit is nothing more than a thick, almost black clay or ooze, let's say, that oozes out of the mountains in the Himalayas. It is an amazing form of nothing more than thousands of years of plant matter. It's really basically fulvic acid, like 80% fulvic acid and 20% humic acid, somewhere around there. And that actually has been known to help you eliminate some of the toxic metals from your body. It's one of my favorite. But if you test shilajit, sometimes it'll come back also high in. It's really weird that some of the most effective things that remove toxic metals are actually high in toxic metals. So the question is, if the substance that removes toxic metals is actually high in toxic metals, does that substance actually release more toxic metals into the body? I've seen zero proof of that in all my studies. I've seen just the opposite. Even if the substance it does have, like a bentonite clay or something like that, even if you test it and it's high in heavy metals, that doesn't mean that you're going to absorb the heavy metals. Actually, just the opposite usually happens, and the bentonite clay actually grabs more heavy metals from the body, or the zeolites actually grab more heavy or toxic metals from the body, and then it's all excreted. So, maybe somebody will fund a research study on that in the future, maybe me, and we'll actually disprove that theory that just because something that you test has high levels of metals in it doesn't mean that you're going to actually absorb those metals. So those are some of my favorite, and really detoxifying. I mean, there's doing any type of detoxification. The cleaner your body gets, the more you're going to be able to extract and eliminate some of those.